Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Amber Duke. Legacy media is still grappling with how to handle DOGE and its efforts to cut government spending.
Watch as this CNN panel was shocked after businessman Kevin O'Leary called for more action on DOGE's front.
I think the issue is they're not whacking enough. There's this concept in private equity when you get a bankrupt company and you go in there, you cut 20% more than your initial read. And then you find like a pool of mercury, the organization gels back together again. Always cut deeper, harder when there's fat and waste. The FAA, it's not the people. The code is cobalt. It's from the 60s. It needs CapEx put into it for the technology to be upgraded to make it safer. Fat like a chicken. All of these agencies are like big fat chickens dripping over barbecues of fat. This is the best barbecue I've ever seen, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. They're not cutting enough. Keep slashing, keep hacking while you have a 24-month mandate before the midterms. Cut. More cutting. Believe me, it's going to work out just great. Everybody should be happy about this.
Even people with the nuclear codes, cut them too?
Cut everything. Because if you don't see what they're doing and they can't show you that they're adding value, you whack.
But it's
That was so satisfying.
Well, it's satisfying because he's using actually business terminology,
Right.
because Kevin O'Leary, in addition to being an entertainment celebrity figure, actually was a successful businessman, is a successful businessman, and knows something about running large organizations. And they're like, what's CapEx? What's that?
I don't know what it is either.
No,
but it
we're
sounds
media
cool.
people. We don't need to know
I'm
anything.
on Kevin O'Leary's side.
We've never pretended to be real people who have to deal with real issues in real life.
That's
We are
so very
commentators.
true. He's got a point, though. Look, there's a Rasmussen poll that just came out that said, 86% of Republicans agree with what DOGE is doing, 55% of independents, and even a quarter of Democrats at least somewhat approve of what DOGE is doing to the federal government. And I think it was like in the 60s, 60-something percent of Americans say that it's really important to them to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse. So this is something that is hugely popular. It's long overdue. And I think it's been really shocking to a lot of people to see the readouts from DOGE and get a real indication of what it is that we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on. There was a recent video that Lee Zeldin, the new EPA administrator, put out last week where he said that a Biden official, he described it as dumping gold bars off of the Titanic, basically rushed $20 billion into the coffers of left-wing advocacy groups in the final weeks of the administration. And Lee Zeldin was like, well, surprise, we found it and we're gonna claw it back. So too bad, guys. But yeah, people that I talked to over the weekend down in Kentucky and Illinois were all like, we knew that government waste was bad, but we never realized that it was this bad.
Well, because they've never actually cut it before.
Right.
They've been promising to do this our entire lives, and then Republicans get into power. They have brief windows where they have enough political capital to act, and they don't act. In fact, they do the reverse of acting. They grow government by just as much. They find some new wars to start, whatever it is. There's been no mass firings of workers, mass exposures of frauds. And I think this is really revealing how a lot of people of establishment or progressive bent view government, the federal government mostly, as an employer, as a jobs program, because that's what they're really incensed about. More so even than finding out that various grants went to various things that no one can defend, but just as an employer, as a jobs program. And look, it's not fun when people lose their jobs. I feel for people who are caught in the so-called chaos of all this. But look, you're paid for by the taxpayers. Other people are supporting your salary. And companies are like this too. I bet many companies could become more profitable and effective if they actually reduce some of their, usually not the lowest people, but the middle manager level tier of bureaucrats.
Certainly the HR departments.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just in government, it's in companies too. And look what Elon did with Twitter. 80% of the workforce eliminated. Twitter still works just fine. I mean, people don't like some of the moderation changes to it. I happen to like them just fine, but others don't. But it didn't make it it still works.
Yeah, it still functions.
That's alarming, right? Because all the same people who said no, it's gonna crash or be glitchy or whatever if you do that, they're all the ones saying that all these systems can't be run anymore without all of these people. Okay.
And then they cry about the valuation decreasing, which is mostly based on external valuations of the company. But if you look at the profit margins and the overall profit, it's actually increased since Elon Musk took over. But I do disagree with you on one point. I don't feel bad for the government employees at all. I really don't.
I'm a big softie.
I know you are. You're very sweet, Robby. I don't feel bad for them. Look, they should be adding value. If they're not, then they got to go. And I think they've been riding the gravy train way too long. I mean, there's people who have sat at home in their pajamas. And look, I'm a hypocrite. I worked from home for 5 years. I get it. It's nice.
Yeah.
I sometimes wear pajamas.
Yeah.
But you got to do the work if you're going to sit at home. And obviously, these people were not. And I saw this video of this USAID speechwriter who didn't even work directly for USAID, by the way. She was contracted with an external company that did work for USAID, crying on CNN about not knowing where her next paycheck's going to come from. She's worked for like all these consulting firms over the years. I mean, boo-hoo, so freaking sad. Do you think she shed a tear? Well, I know she didn't because she wasn't old enough, but do you think she would have shed a tear for all of the working class people who got completely screwed during the 2008 recession? I mean, like my dad, who was a plumber, got laid off, I don't even know how many times. It was like 3 weeks here, 2 weeks there. Maybe you're lucky and you get 2 months here, and then, you're laid off basically like 6 times a year, and then you've got medical bills. I mean, it's freaking brutal. And none of them gave a shit. So, no, I don't really feel bad, actually, for them at all.
In general, as a class of employees, government employees have all sorts of work protections that people in the private sector don't. So now I do hope, I say this every week, I will say it again, that some of these cuts that are being done in order to make them stand up to court scrutiny, there's no reason for Congress to not act while Republicans control Congress. Maybe Democrats are going to get in the way. Let's find out. That could end up backfiring on them because, as you said, lots of American people, even on the Democratic side, want to see cuts to government. So, if they're going to actually obstruct this through filibuster or whatever, make them put their money where their mouth, make them do it.
Yes.
So then you can say, well, this is why we need, from a Republican strategic standpoint, this is why we need you to even vote for us because Democrats are going to get in our way. But you have to actually do that. If Congress, I don't understand. Sometimes I think Republican congressmen prefer whining to doing anything. They want to go on TV and complain about how bad everything is.
Yes.
Wokeness is taking over and we can't even stop it. But you control the government. Look at what they're doing. You could make permanent or semi-permanent the cuts to USAID or NIH or reductions in government employees. You can act to enshrine that, and you're not doing anything. It infuriates me.
They are so obsessed with being the minority party and the opposition party.
Being grievance
they don't know
filled.
how to govern.
They don't.
And regardless of what anyone thinks about Trump's actual policies, the man is governing, right? He is not wasting a single second.
No.
He is doing whatever he possibly can to try to enact his policy priorities with no help from Congress.
Frankly, he's doing a lot of things
I
I think should be under Congress's purview, like the whole tariff thing. I mean, it is clearly under the executive's purview. I would actually rather have it be under Congress's purview, but Congress doesn't want to do any legislating.
They don't want to.
They don't want any power or authority for themselves.
One more point on why we shouldn't care about the government bureaucrats.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm on my soapbox about
That's
this.
fine.
But these are also the people who cheered on the vaccine mandates that led to tons of their colleagues getting fired, including numerous members of the military. They loved when there were massive cuts to the government when it was people who they didn't agree with on certain ideological issues. So if we're now doing massive cuts because you're not good at your job or you don't do your job or you suck or you're dedicated to resisting the elected official that the American people put in power, see ya.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on this, I hate then when you get the feedback, but you're afraid of cutting. What about the nuclear supervisors or the FAA? I'm like, okay, just having more people, more employees does not necessarily enhance safety. If you want to make an argument to me why this role is indispensable or this person in this job is necessary for nuclear safety or airplane safety, fine, make that argument. That's fine. I'm listening. But you can't just say volume of people in this role. You can have more people in this role, make it more cumbersome and bureaucratic and difficult to grapple with. Also, there's no evidence so far that any FAA stuff has to do with these recent numbers of plane crashes. Doesn't seem to me to be the case. And we have more. It's a different issue, but in literal airports, more safety people have just made flying much more difficult and much more expensive without any enhancement to safety. So you can't just play the more government employees equals more safety, why do you hate safety card. It's no good.
Right, well, that's the thing. Who at the FAA is getting fired? Is it air traffic controllers? No, because they've exempted people who have direct safety benefits. It's probably the people who create the design for the reg tags that you have to put on your bag when you go board. Stupid stuff like that. So if they're gonna put this blanket sort of rule over certain departments that you don't get to cut there, I mean, that's just fundamentally dishonest. You need to explain who it is that we're specifically cutting that is somehow going to lead to us all dying in a fiery plane crash.
I would like them to concentrate on the people who go through my bags, my suitcases.
Oh gosh, don't get me.
Let's get to that. You were traveling.
I had multiple flights from hell with really nasty flight attendants, so yeah, we probably shouldn't go there. I already went off on the government bureaucrats.
All right, we're not going to crash any planes. Tune in tomorrow for more free media.